Hey everybody, this is Perch, and there are two things that happened within about 24 hours, which I think sums up in this weird kind of analogy way the state of comics, at least online discussion of comics, and it, better than anything else could. I stepped out to go for a little walk. There's birds out at Seattle, and it's bright sun and hot. It's funny because Seattle is hilarious. Whenever it gets above like 70 degrees, people just lose their minds. Like it is too hot. You start seeing people like it just they disrobe, which is not a good thing. I said to somebody once, and like, yeah, and everybody's walking around in like bikinis and stuff. So like, all right, I'm like, nah, not like you think. Uh, nope. But I went by Home Depot to pick up some hardware stuff, and I watched like two people almost get into a fist fight over one of the last portable air conditioner units that they've got here, because it's supposedly going to get up to 90 degrees this weekend, and like people are already like talking about having to get to Canada, and they cannot. Seattle is funny. People cannot stand the weather, like any weather. When it snows, it is an apocalypse. When it's hot, it's an apocalypse. When it's raining too hard, it's hard. I mean, it's like I've never lived in a place before where people had such little tolerance for basic weather changes as this area. They like it 65 degrees and mildly drizzly. That's it. That's the only weather acceptable in this area. Sorry. Anyway, no. When it's sunny, then people start to like, suddenly everybody has a boat. They're like going out and they're on the water and everything else. But then nobody has heard of sunscreens. Everybody shows up. Sorry, I could do 10 minutes just on this. But anyway, here are these two events. And like I mentioned, I went to a comic convention over the weekend, and it was first in a while. And I wandered onto some guy's Twitch stream and just talked for a little while, not knowing nobody knew who I was. So I was just there chatting because I think somebody saw me talking to Peter David for a while and Chris Claremont for a longer while, and so like, this guy must be somebody who can talk. And so I came on, I talked for a while. I'm like, I wonder if anybody's going to recognize my voice. Probably not, but there you go. Anyway, that's the little things. Doxing myself on somebody else's channel would be just face reveal somewhere else is absolutely what would be on brand here. But the guy's like, so we got to talk about Batman. And I'm thinking to myself, because of the online conversation, everything, we're going to talk about the fact that, Batman won't go for an Australian lunch. And no, they're like, Batman, is he married or not? And it took me by surprise. It's like, what? No, not really. I mean, like at the conclusion of Tom King's run, they kind of did we're married, but we don't need to say we're married, but we're taking a break, but not really. Kind of, we'll see. Like this kind of very convoluted way of marriage, not marriage, simultaneously. It read like DC didn't want to commit to the wedding, but they also didn't want to completely say no because they knew there are other fans. So it's like, let's split the difference and make nobody happy. So I'm like, no, was my answer. But then I said in return, I'm like, well, and how satisfied could he keep her anyway because of the whole won't go down thing. And the commentator had heard of that, of course, had heard that little controversy, but nobody was interested. Nobody cared. And kind of other people in the con, I know this came up with, was it Starlin or Rick Leonardi? One of the creators was talking. It was like, what did you make of that whole, not me, somebody was saying, what do you make of that whole Batman won't go down thing? Because heroes don't go down. And the creator's like, well, I mean, you're not going to show Batman going down on someone in a comic because that would cause too much problems for DC. It's like very matter of fact. He's like, probably he would. I mean, like he's dating Cat. The response was, God, I wish I could remember which one said this. Maybe it's Jerry Ordway, actually. Anyway, the comment was basically like, well, yeah, if he's dating Catwoman and sleeping with Catwoman, you figure he's probably been tied up and, nipple clamps and other things because she's kind of freaky. So sure, he's probably been down, but you're never going to see that in a comic book or a show because that would be, the company, the publisher, the TV station doesn't want to explain that. The kids, they don't want to see headlines like Batman eats pussy. Like nobody wants to have that said out there, so they just won't. But yeah, of course he probably does. But it was interesting because on Facebook and on Twitter, people were losing their minds over this. Like, is Batman a satisfying lover? I don't. Like, it was trending. It was the topic. And I think this is giving you a massive clue that reinforces kind of what I've said and others have said plenty, which is the people on Facebook and Twitter aren't buying comics, by and large. The people who are making all these conversations and putting this stuff out, this is not your comic buying audience. The actual comic buying audience was at the con buying comics. And even the people who would go to a convention is kind of a different subsection of actually people who would go to a shop. But here's these people, including creators, including fans, who were simultaneously uninterested in the whole topic, thought it was just kind of embarrassing and dumb, and also had an opinion, meaning he probably does, but who cares? Like, these are comic characters. And it was such a stark difference to what dominated conversation for like a week on social media, but it bore little to no resemblance of what was actually going on in the cons and the stores. This makes sense. The stuff that people are interested in on social media and talk about and make for fun tweets and everything else is it's something that the comic buying audience, the people actually putting money to the comics, either have already answered for themselves or don't care. They were far more interested in debating, is Batman married or not? That was a topic people actually did want to know. There was some conversation around, is Ghostmaker going to become the new Robin, or is he going to turn on him? And they were interested in the plot of what was going on in the comic. These people were up to date on current events in the comic. They were talking about Miracle Molly and some of these other characters, but they did not care about the weird social media fetish nonsense. But again, it wasn't like people were standing there going, I'm a prude, I don't want to hear any of this. No, they were standing there going, yeah, of course you would, but you're not going to see that in the comic. Of course you wouldn't, because this stuff is still for kids. Like, yeah, dismissal. The other things, I said there were two things which summed up the industry very well. The other one is weirder and sadder. And that's like, I'm in several Facebook groups. And in some of these groups, there are people trying to get their Kickstarters going and over. And or little independent comics. And this is one of those ones where I appreciate that there is a strategy. It's a bad strategy. It's a dumb strategy for a lot of reasons, but at least there was a strategy. I don't know if I give points for that or what. But basically what they were discussing was, you've got this small indie comic coming up. And I don't remember if it was actually going out to the stores or going on a crowdfunding thing. And they were debating, how can we get one of the channels to crap on this comic in order to give it some sales. I think the origin of this was the whole, it made the rounds and there were videos on it, the Big Bang comic saying that, since Ninjak was declared an SJW comic, it sold double, which of course it did or it did. It really is irrelevant. That whole data point is a little bit like saying, this tree gives off oxygen and therefore it helps somebody in Chicago live. I mean, it's like it's these nonsense connections that don't mean anything. That's a terrible analogy, but it's a terrible statement, so it fits. But anyway, they were debating, like, how can we get one of the big angry people to crap on our comic so it will get it some attention. And once again, I find this. There's strategy. Person's trying to figure out how to sell their comics. That's good. But that's really where the good part ends, because hate buying can happen. Absolutely. If there are definitely people who go to the store and they will buy things in order to hate it and crap on it. That happens. That's a thing. But it's not a sustainable strategy. And nor is it a strategy that could work for a small indie kind of unknown comic. This might work for, say, the first issue of a new thing by King, or Bendis, or Mags Visaggio that might be something that could work, but it's not going to work for no-name people. You would have to start such an immense fight, and just the downside is massive to this strategy. If by some crazy coincidence you manage to piss off big negative YouTubers enough that they go and do a video about how terrible you are banking on them basically marketing your crazy idea or whatever it is, your book, to the point that people would actually go and pay for it because they want to hate it too. That's a crazy strategy. Unlikely to work. Definitely, even if it did work, it would not be worth the absolute torching of everything else that you would do in order to get it there. And this isn't the right foot that you want to put your book on. But it is telling that in 2021, as people are discussing strategies for titles, that one of the strategies happens to be get people pissed off enough to buy your book to hate it. That is again, this is very, very 2021, comics thinking. It's a bad idea. It wouldn't be good for you long term. It basically false inflates the value of such a thing to proportions that are stupid. I mean, look, let's say you get all of the big, whoever the quote unquote the big names are, the 4, 5, 6, 10, I don't know how far down we go, to all call your book just a complete hot mess. How many extra sales do you really think that is? It's not many. Even if everybody went at it aggressively, like there were 2-hour live streams ripping your book, the percentage of people in a comic buying market who are listening to that, going to then pay you for the book to have it, to hate on it, is ludicrous. And then at one point they say, and then some of those people will hate buy it, but we'll convert them because we tell such a great story. That's even more delusional thinking. Somebody who's going to pick up something because somebody else hate it on YouTube and then buy it, and you are going to convert them through the power of your comic. I mean, why not just put out a good comic and bypass all of the get people to hate you comment? That's madness. But it is interesting. Kind of both things have been swirling around in my mind as this is the state of comics in 2021. We've got things trending on social media around the oral sex preferences of Batman that nobody or very few people actually buy comics gives a shit about. Simultaneously, we've got independent, kind of new up and coming writers openly talking in a forum about how could they get people to hate their book in the hopes that would generate sales. That's bizarre. It was very healthy to go to the Comic-Con. Lots of people walking around, lots of people, money changing hands, buying books. Yes, certainly back issues, but also talking about new stuff, getting things signed. A lot of enthusiasm for comics. There's your audience, which, maybe, if you're a comic publisher, maybe one of the things you should do, and I don't know why this doesn't happen, at least hasn't in the past when I've asked, is if you're an editor, an assistant editor, if you're a company, God, send your editors to the Comic-Con, go, quote unquote, in disguise, but you won't need to. The majority of the editors, assistant editors are not, immediately recognizable. Just go there and stand in line and talk to people, and you will hear your direction quickly. It's right there. Free ideas. Anyway, funny stuff. There we go. What do you think about all that? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.